salute to all of the patriots out there. Um, what I'm going to be sharing with you is very interesting. This is a whistleblower testimony who's coming forward, and he's going to be exposing uh, Mike Pence, the devil, for his connection to a human trafficking ring they call the family, and how they operate within the church and his experience and so forth. The official video will be loaded up to primeminister.com. It will not be on YouTube. YouTube will completely banish me forever if I absolutely post it on YouTube. Okay, so go to primeminister.com, or you can also go to my Rumble page. It will be there as well. And but I'm going to share with you an overview, a document of the story, the soldier's testimony. His name is it's called David Soldier's Story on Human Trafficking, told from inside the network as a recruit. Solomon O. David Soldier, he's known as David, sometimes referred to as Soldier, legally had his birth name, which is Nathaniel Isaac Hahn, changed by the family, an umbrella organization that had set up in the 1980s with plans to overthrow the United States of America government. Headquartered on a ranch in southern Oregon near the town of Medford, the family uses children-focused Bethel Church, headquartered in Redding, California, with a network of other churches to erect camps and training facilities throughout the United States while recruiting children and teenagers to be a part of its long-term planning operations. They often recruit vulnerable children, some on the autism spectrum, in order to mold and shape them for specific militia-type tasks and other objectives. Another headquarters is located at the Rock City Church in Baltimore, Maryland. Okay. As an inside recruit in the family at an early age, David saw how the dark organization functioned, how it created viruses and antidotes, how it trafficked humans and weapons, how it infiltrated all major law enforcement and intelligence agencies over the past 20 years, including the U.S. Army, and how it provided a conduit for the elite, the political class, the power brokers to pursue their Luciferian tastes and proclivities. After escaping with his late mother, Sapphire, in 2010, David returned to the family for a second stint. Ultimately, David would break away again. In doing so, he spent the past several years with his late mother as an outsider, mapping the scope and threats the family posed on America. Active members of the family include potential traitors such as former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, certain other current and former Army officers, and certain senior U.S. government officials, plus many other visitors to the ranch. From what I can ascertain, and in David's opinion, Pence is clearly a bad guy. I'm not sure how that's supposed to be properly worded, but in David's opinion, Pence is clearly a bad guy. Note 1. President Obama is often mentioned in David's friend Stephen Reamer's, quote in quotation, Steve, reports, but only in the role of an observer. And that's because he's just a total puppet and he's a total mind slave. He has no thought power. Obama was a pure pawn in the whole game. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai and former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo are also mentioned in Steve's reports. Now, this is not in a negative connotation because we all love Mike Pompeo, so I'm not suggesting that. He's just saying that it was mentioned. Steve and David refer to them as the three Ps, which I don't know what the P stands for. Note 2. The extent of the family's charts, maps, and history as researched and discovered by David and Steve is so deep, broad, and sprawling that providing all the information up front would tax and overwhelm any person reviewing the documents. It is also important to separate David's personal journey, eyewitness accounts, and testimony from his and Steve's research and investigation. See Exhibit A. Now, all these documents will be posted on primeminister.com. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, Exhibit D, and Exhibit E, as well as this thing that I'm speaking to you now. But all of the supporting documents be posted up there with the actual video testimonial of David. Okay. David and Mike Pence. David was born in 1992, according to the timeline, Exhibit B. He provided of his interactions with Mike Pence. His story began in 2005 when he was a 13-year-old boy. In 2005, during the first meeting at Ashland, Oregon Joy Christian Fellowship Church, Pence chatted with Dave's mother and a young recruit named Aubrey Ubache. Pence crossed over the adults and shook David's hand, saying, "I expect to see great things from you, young man." That summer, Pence showed up to Dr. Mallow's office. There, David got sick with a lab-made virus while Pence watched him suffer. Now, this is very interesting because you're talking about Mike Pence while we're watching this whole virus thing happen. So this is an interesting way that he's kind of getting connected to a deadly virus. Interesting. Okay. Dr. Mallow was an ex-police chief in San Francisco. He was also close friends with Dr. James Sade, the family physician for David and his mother, Sapphire. In summer of 2008, David, then 16 years old, trained at Box R Ranch, Oregon. He disobeyed Pence, who knocked him down and locked David in a coffin. Now, this is a pretty sick picture here. You're talking about a guy who was at one point in time the vice president of the United States. You're talking about Mike Pence, that he, that this testimony that he put a kid in a coffin. Okay, so this lets you know these guys got split souls. They got two personalities. They one way for the cameras and one way in the dark shadows. Okay. Later that day, David managed to escape the coffin. The next day, Pence told David that since he disobeyed his order, his best friend would die. Okay. The person was Aubrey Ubache, age 23 years old. After ordering Aubrey killed by a third party in front of David, Pence tortured David. Okay, so yeah, and this isn't the first time we've heard that Mike Pence is a cold-blooded killer and a seriously sick pedophile. The videos of one of his victims is also going to be posted along with this on primeminister.com. I'm not going to bring it to YouTube. Okay. After training at the camp, David became sick with the virus again. Pence showed up at Sapphire's house, which is the boy's mother, with Jeremy Haskell, and argued with her about Aubrey's death and David being sick with the virus. Jeremy Haskell was a youth pastor in the church David was attending, Joy Christian Fellowship, and head over several local area ministries in Southern Oregon. Haskell was subsequently involved in the deaths of several members of one of his youth groups as a result of a vehicle crash while he was driving, but escaped prosecution. We know why that is, because they got judges and everything else. Oh, God. Later in 2008, David Pence and his family at the Grace Church of Central Point, 100 Oak Street, Oregon. The next day, David fell victim to the virus for the third time. That time, the virus knocked David out of action for 6 months. He suffered from being starved of oxygen, similar to COVID-19, which I find to be very interesting, very interesting. And there's obviously, Mike Pence is clearly connected to the COVID-19 outbreak, for sure. Okay, with many patients suffering hypoxia or acute mountain sickness. Okay. After that incident, Pence came to the ranch and spoke with David's mother for 2 hours, giving direct orders from Pence. Sapphire drove David over to Dr. James, said, who is believed to be running the family at the time, and created the virus as well as the antidote. Interesting, very Illuminati like. They make the virus and the antidote. That's population control in a sentence. Okay, so Dr. James say they suggest that he's probably head of the family, which is probably just a small subset within the vast Illuminati structure that they have, which is crumbling. So I don't know how uh, how much of this, from what I'm reading is actually still, I mean, he may be no longer with us, James. All right. Shout out to the White Hats. Go get them. Listen. He says, in spring 2009, David contracted the same virus for a fourth time. Feeling sorry for David, Dr. Said gave the boy, who was 17 years old, the antidote, but let the other boys die. Brian Davis and other Christian authors came to town and revealed themselves as being human traffickers. Listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to this. Brian Davis and other Christian authors came to town and they revealed themselves as being human traffickers. And they met Mike Pence at the Joy Christian Fellowship Church. Devils hiding behind Christianity and hiding behind the church and religion. And oh my God, that's just so sick. Wow. And God bless this brother David. Peace and protection all around him in Jesus' name. And also pray that his message reaches the world and the universe too. Okay, how about that? How about it reaches the world and the universe? Summer 2010, David and his mother left Southern Oregon, having had enough of Pence and the virus. So you see Pence and this virus connection, his weapon of choice. And so I'm sure Pence had a big hand in the COVID-19 execution of that mass extermination that they put together there. And they needed to start a new life. In 2012, David, 20 years later, was trafficked from his mother's home to northern Washington state near Canadian border. Pence appeared remotely via video chat to watch him and David's traffickers. David was missing for approximately 18 days. Looking back, David called those days pure hell. By 2014, David was forced to go back to Southern Oregon after he and his mother fled Oregon, were tracked down by an Oregon State police officer known as Officer Jackson, who forced them back to Oregon. David contracted the virus for the fifth and the final time. Pence visited the Joy Christian Fellowship in Central Point and spoke to the church leadership, while Pence met with David. Sapphire slipped away and tried to get the antidote, but was confronted by Dr. Said. Donnie Peace, Joseph Yuriko, and Taliban leader Dr. Said told David how he, Pence, Donnie, Jeremy Haskell, Steve Schmelzer, and Fred Delvas were creating the family and several viruses. How they're creating these viruses. So Pence is involved in COVID-19. I mean, it's safe to say that he has a hand in it, and very interested. I'm sure he had an hand in it. All right. 2015, David encountered Mike Pence at a Kroger store parking lot in Chester, VA, with a south of Richmond, where David and his mother were staying nearby. Pence shot David in the neck with a device believed to have been a dart gun. Whatever it was, the projectile caused David to temporarily stop breathing. A pastor took David to St. Mary and an Immaculate Conception Roman Catholic Church in Fredericksburg, VA, well north of Richmond. There, David saw Pence for the final time. He was so afraid. Finally, the pastor drove David and his mother back to the hotel in Chester. Okay, February. Now, here we are in very recent times, all the way up until last month, the month of March, rather. You know what I mean? So this is very recent times. February 2021, David and Steve stayed in the Hotel Laurel, Maryland. There, David discovered one of the locations of a widespread affiliate activity of the family called healing rooms. And it's interesting that they're using healing rooms in churches to do all this evil. So they like to masquerade about as do-gooders, and then actually they're very much shepherds of the devil. They're serving the devil, and they're doing the devil's work. Okay, so in Laurel, David received several calls from one of his former traffickers, Wayne Thomas Batson, who was hoping to get David back. Batson is also an author of children's books, including Battle for Cannibal Island. Very interesting. With co-author Moraine Heron. At the conclusion of some form of religious service at the nearby healing room facility, David recorded 6+ minutes of a nameless pastor leading a conclusion of a service with Batson, among others in attendance, as they claimed to kill a U.S. Army soldier in a sacrifice for which they stated their intent was to use the dead soldier's body for cannibalistic rites. Wow, these are pastors. Listen, these are Christian leaders talking this way about killing the army soldier and using the body for cannibalistic rites the next morning. They also announced a children's party listen. We got to take our country back. This is enough. This is enough. They announced a children's party to take place in a nearby town of Dayton, MD. See Exhibit C, also posted on the site. Audio recording of religious service. Note 3. The address mentioned by the pastor, 1401 Cliff Avenue in Dayton, does not exist on Google Maps here. However, this road is sometimes called Clifton Oaks Drive. So if you want to research that, that's what you want to look up, Clifton Oaks Drive. Okay. Note 4, David's audio recording was made in February 19, 2021, which is also posted on primeminister.com, and you can hear the full thing in an extent. I may post it on Rumble, but it won't be posted on YouTube at all. Okay. So he did his recording February 19, 2021, which is a couple months ago, from the adjournment of a healing room meeting at a healing room location, 7911 Bray Green Road, Laurel, Maryland, right behind the hotel Steve stayed at. It's in a huge warehouse, roughly 100 feet wide, 300 feet long, and came up on Steve's smartphone map as Royal House Chapel. March 2021. February 5th, March 2021, David was arrested on a domestic violence charge, Exhibit D, police arrest documents, with his watcher girlfriend, which means that she was quietly watching him on the behest of the family or the Illuminati or whatever. And supposedly his girlfriend, but she's watching him. Okay, so ain't that how it goes? Okay, set up by the family to keep an eye on him when they got in an argument in Steve's car. The girlfriend was in the driver's seat and David was on the rear passenger seat. And with the car still in the parking lot, the girlfriend threatened to kill David. And given her position in the car and her knowledge of Dave's neck sensitivity to impact, was in position to make good on that statement. Okay, with David's history of concussions from even minor impacts, her statement was very frightening. To get out of the car, David kicked the back of her seat. She was sitting in the front passenger seat, and then got out of the vehicle and threw a smoothie at her. Okay, so that's not major damage. Listen, the police arrested him for that because he's running for his life. Okay, so isn't that how it goes? Okay. The woman called the police and had him arrested. He was taken to local Laurel police station, where he claimed later that Mike Pence had sent someone to squeeze him since he knew too much about the human trafficking network. And that's the reason why this is coming out now, guys, is because this human trafficking network is going down, and much of it is probably going down already. But the public, just be ready to hear more and more stories like this from all over the country, from various different people. I'm pretty sure there's going to be tons of these testimonies of people who have come out. Okay. The directive was way out of proportion for the alleged abuse offense of throwing a smoothie and kicking back the seat of the car. While in federal prison, David was tortured by one of the Maryland Correctional Facility officers while the human traffickers watched. The officer roughed up David pretty good, including punching him, kicking him in the gut, and stepping on his throat, kicking him while he was down on the floor, and stepping on his writing hand. They did this to get David to reveal what he currently knew. David recalled accurately that he had stated previously in the Laurel police station, and also shared what he knew about trafficking in the Laurel area, which sits in the midpoint of the triangle of Baltimore, Annapolis, and Washington, D.C. Okay. Later on, a county commissioner was there and noticed that David didn't belong with the population of violent criminals, noted David's information, and ordered him released. 3 days later, widespread investigations were noticed to be underway into the potential police involvement in human trafficking. This brief was written and prepared by James Grundvig. The date 13th of March 2021, which is just a little over a month ago. Okay, about a month and a half ago. So here we are. And other exhibits. This is evidence that they have. Exhibit E, family wire diagram of linked connections. Exhibit F, the family functional diagram of entities. All this will be posted on primeminister.com on the document page. Okay, so go over there and check it out. You can download it, share it, share with your friends, and help people become aware of some of the things that's going on. This is some very important information right here. Other items will be furnished upon request, including several more documents of the family and its recent domestic terrorism activities of the past few years. Final notes. Some of David's recollections of events are flashbacks to what occurred to him. As such, David's recall of Mike Pence as a pedophile trafficker and murderer had been outed by the late Indianapolis resident in Tory Smith, a trio of 2006 YouTube videos. Let me read that again. As such, David's recall of Mike Pence, a pedophile trafficker and murderer, had been outed by a late Indianapolis resident named Tory Smith in a trio of 2016 YouTube videos. Smith was claimed to have been poisoned by a mix of nuclear compounds and looked the part in the final video before he died. Now, those 3 videos will also be posted on primeminister.com. They're on YouTube, but I won't dare post them to my channel because my channel will no longer exist. Okay, I'm going to post them to my channel, my website, primeminister.com. And these are testimonies. I've seen this a while ago, but this came out in 2016 by a guy named Tory Smith. And he pretty much testified back in 2016 that Mike Pence was like one of the most evil guys that ever walked the face of the earth, and he killed all these children, and he's a Satanist, and he's not a real Christian, and I mean all this and that. And in these 3 videos, the man has been, I guess he was poisoned or something like that. And in the 3 videos where he's exposing Mike Pence, he literally, his body just dissolves right before your very eyes. He goes from being full face and heavy and healthy to literally sunken cheeks and just completely, flesh and bones, and then he died shortly thereafter. All right, so those videos will also be posted on primeminister.com. Finally, David's story of Mike Pence also aligns with the recent Linwood whistleblower transcript made by Ryan Dark White, and how Pence was having sex with boys younger and younger in 2013 and was leveraged by Rod Rosenstein. Videos of being caught in the act. Very interesting. I would love to know more about how Rod Rosenstein plays into this, because he was definitely adamant into getting rid of Trump. He wanted to give it a shot. He tried his hand. Didn't work out for him though. Sorry about that, buddy. March 6, 2021, this article was published. Pence eludes capture, military in hot pursuit. And this article, Real Raw News, will also be posted up on primeminister.com. I'll have the article there so that you can watch it or download it or whatever. But it's suggesting that there was an escape or something like that. We know he hasn't gone far. I doubt it. My gut tells me Pence is dead as a doorknob. Okay. The end of this article reads: "It's like an upped and disappeared our source. A helicopter couldn't have got him because the team would have heard it. Someone tipped Pence off, and it looks like he had an escape route planned. Trump wasn't happy at all. He put out an all points bulletin for Pence capture, and he asked loyal military commanders to stay vigilant and to conduct a more thorough search of the area. In closing, our source said Trump has dispatched a forensics team to the cabin to check for prints and fibers DNA evidence proving that Pence was indeed the cabin's occupant." And so they're looking for Mike Pence. All right, so this document is going to be posted up on primeminister.com. God bless Brother David here. Peace, protection all around you in Jesus' name. And I pray that, that we're going to go from dark to light. I mean, it's really happening. You're going to see this happening more and more. But the takedown of the deep state, these type of testimonies are going to be instrumental, whether you're talking code of COVID-19, voter fraud, conspiracy, occult, satanic ritual, child human trafficking, and any other moral malady that's known to man. These testimonies are going to be absolutely instrumental. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you go to primeminister.com, download these documents, share with your friends and your family. Also, if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, you need to sign up for the newsletter, because that way I can send you this stuff directly. Everybody who's on my newsletter, you're going to get this in a nice little package, this with the video and the links and everything will be right there for you. So everybody who signed up to the newsletter. So make sure you go to primeminister.com and do sign up. God bless you. Where we go one, we go all.